the, oh, that's not me. If you're watching online, I wish I looked like that. But that is our speaker who will be, Merle says to back it up.
I'm sorry. I accidentally.
Although I liked how I looked. So anyway, welcome everybody to those of you here in the room. This is the Living Well Before and After Transplant program, and we're really grateful to our friends at the American Liver Foundation. Chad Dunning is here, and for those of you online, he doesn't look like that other slide either. But we're grateful to our partners at the American Liver Foundation, the Upper Midwest chapter, for hosting us and collaborating with us on these programs. But for those of you that are online or those in the room, you know that these programs are monthly programs, but they're really designed for all recipients, as well as people waiting for transplants. Last month, we had an awesome presentation on heart health. And this month, the challenge I gave to our speaker, Kelsey, was to kind of take that theme in terms of heart health, but let's apply it to something that sometimes we don't think a lot about, and that's dining out. And then also, what about all these trends that we're hearing about now, and how does that apply to me? Because every day I'm bombarded and see in the media different things that are kind of supposed to be good for me too. So how do you figure that out? So that was the challenge I gave to Kelsey. She joined us here in Milwaukee, drove over from Madison, and we're very, very grateful. And she'll tell you a little bit about herself. For those of you that are online, you'll be able to type in your questions in the sidebar, and we have two awesome volunteers, John and Merle, that'll be watching for your questions. And Kelsey, you'll just have to let us know if you're open to taking questions in between as they occur or on the end. So it sounds like she nodded her head that she is open to taking your questions. If you're here in the room, perhaps repeat those for people that are online, and either Merle or John will kind of shout them out if people have written in some questions. So with that, I just want to say welcome, and I'll turn it over to Kelsey.
All right, thank you. Let's see if I can get this situated. All right, I think I did it. Thank you everyone for coming out this evening. I really appreciate it. As Cindy said, we're talking about troubleshooting the trends, so eating for your heart at home and while dining out. So I guess a little bit about me. So I studied dietetics for my undergrad at the University of Dayton in Ohio. So go Flyers. I completed my didactic internship at Viterbo University up in La Crosse in 2014 to 2015. And I currently work for Fresenius Medical Care. One of my goals I've recently kind of discovered is I kind of want to work on like a dialysis friendly cookbook. I find we have a lot of patients that ask questions about how different diets fit together. And there's recipes out there, but maybe they find that one is maybe a little carb heavy or one needs to be tweaked in one way or another. So that's something that I have recently kind of discovered I would hopefully like to do. So I have nothing to disclose to you all. So that's my lovely disclosure slide. And today my objectives, some of it might be a little bit of repeat knowledge, information you already know, but I just kind of want to go through some of the relationships between heart and kidney function, because that's what I work a lot with personally, and how healthy eating can kind of protect, hopefully prevent some chronic disease progression. Obviously with people who have already had transplants, you may not be paying as close attention to maybe certain components that you used to post-transplant, but maybe we'll touch on some of that, and if you have questions, certainly let me know. But we want to increase comprehension of therapeutic eating with chronic disease and providing tips with going out to eat, obviously, and to familiarize yourself with diet trends and their impact on chronic disease prevention or progression. So I like to start out with a little quote. It says, you can't control everything in your life, but you can control what you put in your body. I think a lot of circumstances come up, and obviously people don't plan for these rocky transitions that some people may have, and that can be really a challenge. I find, especially with patient population, things can be really life-altering, and diets are something we all grow up with or grow with certain traditions or family, you know, kind of almost nostalgic meals, if you will, and we kind of have to put our brains into a spot where we can really try to control those healthful foods and try to, you know, take care of our bodies. Ooh, did I turn it off? Oh, thanks, Merle. So, kind of wanted to go into the role of your heart. Obviously, people know hearts kind of pump the blood through the body. We make our hearts beat. They carry oxygen. It's how we're living and functioning, right? But hypertension is actually one of the, you know, leading causes of death, unfortunately, in our country. And we basically need to try to control through diet to try to maybe hopefully prevent some of those things. So positive influences on our heart health are exercise, healthy eating, self-care. Stress can be really, you know, contributing to some of those development of cardiac diseases. And negative influences, kind of touched on stress, smoking, high fat and high sodium diets. So factors out of your control, I mean, there's family history and genetic components that can kind of play into some of that predisposition, as I'm sure many of you know. And then I just wanted to touch on the kidneys because it's kind of close to my heart. So that removes waste and drugs from the body, the kidneys do, helps with fluid balance and electrolyte regulation, regulates stimulation of red blood cells, helps with that blood pressure control, and then of course produces active vitamin D, which promotes healthy bone health too. So they contribute to a lot of different metabolic processes. So the heart and the kidney connection. So high blood pressure is actually the second leading cause of kidney disease, which some of you may know. Development of that high blood pressure can cause damage to those vessels, and therefore it kind of destroys the outer vessels of the kidneys that connect to, and then therefore they can't filter blood as effectively and get rid of those toxins. And our typical American diet, unfortunately, what's readily available, what's convenient, and what's accessible to people is not always going to be beneficial to any of those organs. According to Healthy People of 2020, we have seen some improvements noted in fruit, whole grain, and vegetable consumption, which overall is a very positive thing, but it's predicting that our goals will not be met for the 2030 Healthy People guidelines that'll be put out. So there's still some improvements to be made is basically what that's saying. So sodium intake continues to be high. Intake of processed foods with high fat content as well as sugar consumption are still a concern. So a 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day recommendation is put out there for adults with high blood pressure, and excess sodium and fat intake can contribute to that development of those cardiovascular diseases. Excess fat and sugar consumption can contribute to those excess calories, weight gain, which can cause and, you know, contribute to other comorbid conditions. So healthful eating, this comes from the USDA, like Choose My Plate. So these are just general recommendations for anybody. So including 5 to 8 1-ounce equivalents of grains, with at least half of these being whole grains, is recommended for fiber. Consuming 1.5 to 2 cups of fruits and 2.5 to 3 cups of vegetables per day. And I'm not gonna lie, even I'm guilty of not getting that in sometimes. It can be a challenge in our really go-getter kind of fast-paced lifestyle. 5.5 to 6 1-ounce equivalents of protein per day, 3 cups of dairy, and then 5 to 7 tablespoons of oil. I just wanted to do a little activity with you all. This is called kind of Rethink Your Drink. So some people, I think we have a lot of go-tos for those beverages, and if we're on the go, I don't know, like driving down here, for instance, today, I had a coffee drink on my way, and it probably could have been a little lower in the milk fat option I chose, but you know, you're on the go trying to keep yourself awake, driving down to Milwaukee, and it's just thinking of those types of little modifications that can make our beverages lower in calorie or a little more healthier for ourselves. So just some recommendations for juices, for instance, you know, they don't have really the benefit of fiber. It's oftentimes a lot of added sugar in our juices, and sometimes even just diluting it with water, or even just adding some like fresh fruit to like water in general to kind of add a little flavor to it can be beneficial. For coffees and teas, adding skim milk instead of a creamer or whole milk, or flavored creamers often contain a lot of sugar, so you could use a sugar-free if that's appropriate for you, or just a plain option, and then skip in that whipped cream on top. So I'm always a culprit of that sometimes. I like some whipped cream on my coffee. But anyway, so energy drinks are often popular. I don't know if a lot of people consume energy drinks in this room. Personally, I think I just don't touch them at all, period. As sometimes tempting as that caffeine, that boost of energy can be, so can good sleep can contribute to good energy, and adequate vitamin intake and good other foods coming into our body promote a good energy level in our bodies overall. So just trying to focus on some of those other things, or exercising even too, to give yourself more energy instead of going to that quick fix caffeine source can be beneficial as well. And then soda and sugar sweetened beverages. I think soda is one of those things where it's like diet, regular, they're not, either of them are really that great, but if you're trying to watch those calories or limit those carbs and sugars and things, diet's obviously a good alternative, but they have a lot of sparkling waters out now, or ways to make your own sodas, and I think that's something that people are kind of trending a little more in. You see a lot of those different flavored waters out, and I think that's a direction that's hopefully positive for just overall weight status and sugar consumption as well. This is a little blurry, but it just kind of gives you an idea. We have water on the left side here. So obviously no sugar and plain water. But as you go up the line and get into those sodas, each of these is 5 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. And so it's kind of just representing, you can just see a general trend upward in the sugar content of these beverages. So better off drinking some water or flavoring it or diluting things. So therapeutic eating with cardiovascular disease, since it is so prevalent. So generally speaking, recommendations that are provided are kind of limiting those trans fatty acids, saturated fats. I know a while back there was huge trends with that and trying to limit those trans fatty acids, or being more specific on labeling in general in the consumer world in terms of the trans fats and saturated fats as well. But trying to keep that to a certain, the 25 to 30% of your calories is the recommendation. Consuming monounsaturated fats and omega-3 fatty acids, 1 to 2 servings of fish per week is usually recommended for most people. I don't know how realistic that is, and sometimes in Wisconsin I know we like our good fish fries, but trying to do more of those healthful salmons or mackerels and things is going to be where those omega-3s come from. Limiting dietary cholesterol. This one, I guess, in the most recent Healthy People and American Guidelines was kind of said as, do we really? I think we go back and forth on the cholesterol thing and the dietary cholesterol related to the cholesterol level in the blood. But still a good idea, just because those cholesterol foods are usually higher in fat too, just to kind of be mindful. And then consuming a diet high in antioxidants and eating plenty of fiber, which is going to be from your fruits and veggies. Yes, hello. Oh, sure. So you're saying a can of soda has more grams of sugar than the recommended grams of fiber per day? So it's by weight, right? So if you weigh out a gram and a gram, it'll be kind of the same. 1 gram is equal to 1 gram. But no, that's a good point. I mean, if you kind of compare that in your mind. So I can think off the top of my head, like 1 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew, I'm pretty sure that's like 96 grams of sugar in like 1 bottle. And that's just crazy. Yes. Sure. For your fiber? Sure. So it depends. So your whole, right. Well, what is the fiber on that one, Cindy? Just out of curiosity for your chip bag there. Dietary fiber, 0%. Yep. Okay. So not a good source of fiber. So eat all you want. Usually the recommendation for fiber, they are looking per serving, if you have at least like 3+ grams, that's going to be a good source. So I don't, off the top of my head, your vegetables or your fruits with peels, like skins, those are going to be a higher fiber source for you. Your whole grains will be higher. Oatmeal is a good one. Yep. So a good whole grain source. Absolutely. So I'm sorry, I didn't provide a visual for fiber, but if you look on the certain labels for like cereals and things, you'll notice like bran cereal, for instance, is going to probably have a higher fiber, although different brands are getting a little better at this. But like a Fruity Pebbles, for instance, I mean, there's going to be some fiber in there. I think they do a pretty good job, not with the sugar, but like the adding other vitamins and like increasing the fiber with the grains and using more whole grains in the cereals in general. So just trying to look for those higher fiber sources. Sorry, no visual on the fiber though. I should have done that. That's a good suggestion. I just wanted to touch on, just because I don't think this is well educated upon for people in the early stages of kidney disease. So I just wanted to do a little plug-in. So in stages 1 and 2, usually they're recommending a sodium restriction, evaluating your need for vitamin or mineral supplementation at that point, if you have discovered that you have it at that point in time. I don't know that most people regularly get, I mean, you're supposed to get your labs tested a certain number of years apart and whatnot and be monitoring that, but I don't think this is well educated diet-wise. I think this is something our society can improve upon. Stages 3 through 4, your protein needs actually decrease. I do have some patients sometimes that are like, whoa. I was just told to decrease my protein this much, and now you're telling me I got to increase it once they hit that end stage level. So I think this is something that I just like to emphasize for that reason, because people get a little confused as to why that is, which I can touch on. And then you'll start to kind of limit those potassium, calcium, phosphorus, and obviously the sodium carries through. So it's just something where you start to be more mindful of your kidneys not necessarily relieving those electrolytes out of the body and those toxins. Again, the need for vitamin mineral supplementation, which is evaluated on other physical indications or blood levels in the body. And then finally, your stage 5, you actually, with your renal replacement therapy or dialysis, you have increased protein needs. You're watching those electrolytes as well. And there's definitely, with that filtering of the blood, some need for vitamin and mineral supplementation for sure. All right. So how do you eat with both heart and kidney disease? If anyone wants to chime in, or if I didn't include something that you've heard of or have a question, please let me know. But basically, I think this is more manageable than people sometimes think. Obviously, the sodium restriction is incorporated into both. Fiber intake is good for everybody. I mean, you want to kind of keep things motile, keep things moving, and it's just helpful, good healthful recommendations. Antioxidants from those fruits and vegetables, but keeping in mind those potassium restrictions if that's indicated for that individual, and limiting those trans fats and saturated fats is beneficial pretty much in every diet. So using those lean meats and with increased protein needs, so your turkey, chicken, fish, even game meats are usually leaner, lean cuts of beef. And then your healthy fats, so those monounsaturated, I didn't really define that. Is everyone comfortable with a monounsaturated fatty acid? It's usually liquid, so like your olive oils, canola oils, sunflower oils, and your omega-3 fatty acids, which we touched on with those fish servings. Some people will even supplement it as well for anti-inflammatory purposes. And then I get a lot of questions of, well, what if I have diabetes too? Like, I think that's a tough thing to throw in, just mostly because you're trying to accommodate for different blood glucose testing levels and feeling your best, but also what's going to work quickly for me and what's going to be beneficial health-wise. So I think sometimes that can be an added challenge. I shouldn't say sometimes, most of the time. I have a lot of people that have some challenges with that. So basically trying to carb count and include those good whole grains and fruits and vegetables at your meals, and then trying to do healthful snack choices throughout the day. If you notice a pattern for yourself, or you tend to get low or high at certain times of the day, that can be typical for a lot of folks. Just trying to have those little plans, and maybe even working with the nutritionist specifically. I think diabetes educators are wonderful, and sometimes people are using them more than others. So it's just something to keep in mind. But fiber, healthy fats, consumption of those whole grains, adequate fruits and vegetables, still recommended. So we're kind of seeing a common theme here with some of those recommendations, even though we're having, you know, different disease states. So going out to eat, does anyone look at the menu ahead of time when they go out to eat to make plans? Awesome. Okay. I do. I'm kind of a little freaky about it, to be honest. I kind of like to just know what's on there and know what's containing in different meal items ahead of time. But a lot of times now, some places, especially the more corporate locations, will have nutrition facts available, which can be nice. We'll actually do a little activity later of choosing some things at Culvers. It's kind of fun to choose more healthful choices. And then just asking questions for substitutions, modifications, and limiting salt. I have worked in a lot of restaurants, and chefs just love to just pour that on there to just make it real tasty, you know, make it taste good. And substitution, so I don't know, for instance, personally, I usually sub veggies for mashed potatoes. I don't know, I don't really like mashed potatoes. But, you know, if you're supposed to be limiting something or having gravy on the side or salad dressings on the side, that can maybe be beneficial to therapeutic eating for an individual. Asking for no refills. So for fluid restrictions, I think people have a hard time going out because, you know, that waitress is there pouring your water and refilling your glasses all the time. Even some heart conditions, if you're monitoring that fluid intake as well. So even just asking for none or flipping your cup upside down, I saw that as a recommendation. I think that's, you know, can be helpful. Or bringing like mints with you or other things to kind of, you know, go in between courses or after courses, so you're not just, I don't know, when I'm bored, I drink water. So I think everyone kind of has that little habit sometimes, and that can be beneficial to just avoid those refills or needing to take sips. Taking half of your meal home, that way you're eating a little less, maybe cutting some of those calories. You could still enjoy some of those richer foods, but still have some for later, and then you're not eating it all in one sitting. And then just being cautious with other meals. So for instance, like a lot of times with our patients, we'll kind of say, oh, well, if you're going to have some sweet potato with your dinner or something, just make sure you're not having any other high potassium items at your breakfast and your lunchtime, so you can have a little bit of something later to splurge a little or enjoy it a little more. All right, so diet trends of 2019. Is everyone familiar with all 5 of these diets? The keto, paleo, whole 30, intermittent fasting, D.A.S.H, Mediterranean. I think a lot of these are going around and very popularly used primarily for weight loss, right? I think a lot of people are looking for kind of that quick fix. What can I do to drop some pounds? You know, people, as much as us dietitians love that, lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, I think people want it to happen a little bit quicker than that. So it's just something to note. Obviously, physical activity, if you're able, is encouraged to promote health and weight loss in participating in any diet. But we're going to kind of break some of these down and go through some pros and cons as well. So the ketogenic diet. So this is a very high fat, high protein diet, or I'm sorry, high fat, protein, low carb diet that restricts carbs to 50 grams of carbs or less per day. So that's not a lot. Most people eat, I think, maybe 75, you know, more than that, depending on, you know, if they're limiting carbs or not. But so it's limiting in most fruits. Some nuts, yogurt, cheese, high-fat milks and creams are able to be consumed. Meat, poultry, and fish, oils, and non-starchy vegetables. So your carbohydrate sources are kind of, I mean, you still have fruits, veggies, and dairy, but it's more limited. And the reason that diet is popular, we kind of said already, is for weight loss. So I kind of put this pyramid on here. So I'm sorry, it's a little blurry, but like your sugars, your starchy vegetables, and some like other snacky things are kind of crossed out. But so really focusing on your meats, those non-starchy vegetables, veggies and fruits are in smaller category on top. So you're really focusing on kind of more the non-starchy meats and like your fat sources. So pros and cons of keto. Weight loss, obviously, if you know, you're trying it, it might be kind of that quick fix situation for losing weight. Improve blood glucose levels. There is potential reversal of prediabetes. There's more research going on about this, but if you have, you know, kind of that borderline A1C when you're going into your clinic and you're getting tested and people cut out a lot of those carbs, they sometimes notice that it benefits them in that way, and they won't necessarily progress as quickly. And increased intake of vegetables, potentially, hopefully, if you're not eating just meat and cheese. I would hope not. You might get a little constipated. But the vegetable intake to balance that fiber and still get your good nutrients is going to be beneficial in that way too. But there are potentials for micronutrient deficiencies. So, you know, cutting out a lot of those fruits or maybe some other starchy vegetables. Some people might, you know, not consume as many vegetables and still kind of be missing some of those vitamins and minerals. Potential inadequate fiber intake, like I kind of mentioned, if you're mostly doing the meat and the fat sources. And the only clinically proven benefit for treatment is of epilepsy, potentially Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and now they're doing more research with cancer as well. I put sustainability on the bottom because I don't know about you, but sometimes, I mean, I like whole grain foods. There's benefits from whole grains, and I think cutting those out for long periods of time, especially when they're more, you know, affordable or quick options for people in some situations, I don't think it's really, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do that forever, I don't think, personally. And then I kind of put a picture of what low carb looks like here for you. So you're ketogenic. So we kind of talked about 50 grams or less for the keto diet. So kind of between this keto and moderate picture here that you have. So you can kind of see you're adding more veggies on. So that's where more of your carbs are kind of coming from as you're adding those to the plate. And then that's very limited is obviously your very low starch green veggies. You kind of got a fat source on here and your meat portion. So this is like a 6-gram meal in 1637. So, all right. Any questions on keto before I move on? Oh, there was an email question. Yes.
It says, is it advisable or has any effect on kidney stones? What suggestions would you have about finding out what the research says about this?
Sure. So the question was, is there any effect with the keto diet on kidney stones, and what suggestions I would have for looking up research about it? So actually the most common kidney stone that is diagnosed is a calcium oxalate kidney stone. So there's a lot of different kidney stones that can develop. It's not recommended though to have like this higher fat diet with this. There's a lot of, I think, misconception. People are like, oh, I should eat less calcium to not have a calcium stone build up in my kidneys. However, it's really more of the fat and that higher protein content that contributes to the development. So I would not recommend a keto diet for someone if they are worried about, if they're prone to kidney stones, they have a history of kidney stones, because it might lead to the development of other ones. Granted, that being said, you could probably maybe limit your carbs more or maybe do a more moderate. Potentially, I would maybe work with a dietitian or nutritionist though, and to really try to meal plan that out so that you're not, you know, just doing the full-fledged low, very, very low carb diet. In terms of getting information, I think dietitians, obviously I am one, but I think people don't necessarily know that they can go see one outpatient or ask for a referral from a doctor and just go meet with one. I think for certain conditions, they can bill pretty easily for hour-long sessions and just working with meal planning, and I think it's kind of underutilized. There's a lot of grocery stores even now that have them, so if you have questions about specific foods, or they might even do appointments with people. I know we have one that's bigger up in the Madison area that does that, but it's just something to kind of look up, and you can actually go, if you go to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, you can find someone on there. But in terms of other research, I think that's a good resource to go-to too is the Academy website. They do have research articles that are posted, but also, you know, the NKF website is perfect as well for a good rich source of information. That's pretty, they have good knowledge for public knowledge, as well as like the American Heart Association, excuse me. All right, so the paleo diet is our next trend diet, and I have a lot of family members that actually use this diet, so I've had some personal experience and exposure to this. So purpose is to kind of mimic the way our ancestors ate, right? I think we all kind of are a little familiar with that concept, but it's trying to prevent disease and lose weight. The interesting part about this, though, is depending on what area of the world these people lived in, they may have been eating completely different things or doing different things that we don't necessarily know about for cooking preparation. So kind of keep that in mind. I think there's some variation with this because of that. But foods that are allowed are those that could have been hunted or gathered. It limits dairy, legumes, nuts, grains, sugar, and salt. So your focus is on that protein in the fruits and vegetables and consumption of those whole foods. So this could increase your intake of fruits and vegetables if you're, you know, incorporating those regularly at your meals and your snacks. May help control those blood glucose levels again, and maybe, you know, prevent some development of type 2 diabetes, if, you know, if you're practicing that before the development of some of those higher blood sugars and that over time. And some studies have shown reduction in blood pressure as well as triglyceride and cholesterol levels with following this diet. But again, you could potentially have inadequate fiber intake because you're cutting those grains out, and I think grains are a good source of fiber for a lot of folks. Difficult to obtain wild game, which is one of the recommended proteins, unless you're a good, I don't know, I'm not a good hunter. I'm not a good shot, to be honest. So, but if you are, great. And potential financial concern, I think that buying a lot of fruits, vegetables all the time, and those high protein foods that focus, a lot of the fresh foods, you know, I think grains are a nice option, like I said before, for just economically realistic foods for consumption, and they have good benefits. So why not include some of those whole grains in? Again, sustainability. I think sometimes people, when they do lower carb diets, they can sometimes feel a little more lightheaded at first. They can kind of not feel as good until you really get used to it. I personally tried going on once, and I did not, I don't know, the first few days I just did not feel as good. I needed my oatmeal for breakfast, or my grains. They help keep me going. My fruit nut seed bars, all those good things. So keto compared to paleo, so your keto diet's very low to very low in carbs. Emphasis on fat as the primary source, dairy products are included, versus your paleo is more moderate in carbohydrates, protein emphasis with little fat and oil use is the primary energy source, and you don't have any dairy products that you can have. Yes?
Am I seeing paleo things, meals in the frozen food section?
Oh, absolutely.
Like paleo desserts
Mm-hmm.
in the frozen food section.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Or?
Sure. So I think it's interesting when all these trends come out. I mean, I think back to like when gluten-free was getting really huge, right? And even in the frozen food or like the marketplace sections, you'd find all these, it's just getting bigger on labels. But I think you are really trying to feed into that consumer, what those consumers want. And I think a lot of consumers are going this low carb route. So yes, there's a lot of production and creation of those lower carb options. The interesting thing to me about paleo desserts, so, you know, you can have honey, you can have maple syrup and whatnot, but it's just interesting to me because I don't know that our ancestors would really make dessert. Do you know what I mean? So if you're really trying to follow that, I don't know if they were making these like paleo brownies, obviously. I mean, maybe over their fire pit, who knows? But it's interesting how we try to modify some of these trends to still how we're generally eating, which is very fascinating. But even Chipotle now has those like lower carb bowls, protein bowls, or like, you know, your or even just sometimes more whole grains too. I mean, depending on the trends, you can kind of see the fast food restaurants kind of sway certain ways as well, which is very interesting. I don't know if that answered your question well.
Because I think we all try to do things fast. And I just noticed all of a sudden paleo seems to be appearing in sections.
Right.
Right next to Marie Callender's, you know, kind of thing.
Yep. Nope. That's a good point. So convenience is huge. I think that's I think of like Halo Top ice cream, for instance. Like that's a low carb ice cream, but there's, you know, we could get into a whole topic about that. But it's just interesting how that trend does sway that. And you're right, the convenience thing is what people want because we're all very busy. We got a lot going on. I had a thought and it just left. I'm sorry. I was like thinking it. Woo. Maybe I'll think of it. If I do, I'll bring it back up. Intermittent fasting. To bring personal examples up, I have a few friends that have tried this. I have a couple relatives that have tried this, but just depriving your body of energy for a set period of time. The funny part about this is the research is a little inconclusive because so many people are doing it for different sets of times or like different stretches of times. And a lot of the research too is kind of with religious groups, if you will, if there are fasting periods and traditions that they observe and celebrate. So it's just, there's not a lot of strong evidence yet. I think they're doing more research because of this trend, because people are kind of jumping on this bandwagon. But it's most commonly practiced, as I said, in some of those religions and also becoming that popular kind of weight loss go-to. So you might lose weight. Some people do, but honestly, I think metabolically, if you're fasting, again, are you really going to keep that up for a very prolonged period of time? How much of that is water weight that might just be coming off of you? And then is it just kind of going to rebound back? I think people see that a lot with diets that aren't sustainable. And I think this is one of those I'm a little iffy about. So potential improvement in heart health is kind of the reasons people use this. Decreases in cholesterol and triglyceride levels. But more research is definitely needed. As I said, there's nothing really conclusive, and there's no restrictions on specific food groups. So I guess that's a pro for some people. You're not really cutting anything out. You're just kind of fasting for a specific period. You might have hunger pangs though, that lightheadedness or headaches, weakness we kind of talk about sometimes. Our brains actually thrive on glucose. So the concept of like using those fat or proteins, those higher sources to kind of, you're retraining your body to run off of a different energy source. So that being said, you know, I think the idea of paleo where we used to eat more like that or whatnot, and you're still having some of those grains is like an okay concept. I think since we have that, some people say because of the industrial revolution, we've kind of almost, that was a retraining of our bodies as well. So it's just interesting. You can kind of debate it in a couple of different ways. But like I said, I'm definitely an advocate for the whole grain consumption. I think there's some benefit. More research is needed in terms of how long and how often to fast to prevent starvation, or how long and how often to fast for really, you know, I guess a good weight loss effect too. The Whole30, I think this one kind of phased in, and I'm not hearing as many people doing it personally. I mean, sometimes you talk in the break room and they're like, oh, I'm going to try this diet, or I'm doing this or that. And I think this is kind of phasing out a little, but it's kind of almost, I don't want to say a cleanse, but kind of eliminating certain things with that paleo type of diet for that 30 days, and then reintroducing those foods back in. You can't do any sugars or sweeteners, so that might be beneficial. I think anyone knows, for instance, cutting back on salt. Over time, you kind of get used to it, and then you're like, oh, that is way too salty when you eat something. And you're like, oh, I've just kind of adjusted my taste for that. So it can be kind of beneficial in that way, maybe, for those sugars and sweeteners in that regard. But it's not intended for long-term use. And, you know, it encourages that individual to evaluate those food choices for themselves and the effects on their own bodies. All right, so this is kind of a yes/no for your Whole30. So it's kind of, again, you'll see those similarities we talked about with the paleo. No paleo-fied, I like that. That's kind of like those desserts we were talking about, I think. The treats, yep. So it's just a nice list, and you have that in your packet as well. All right, so pros and cons, short term. So I mean, if you're looking to kind of maybe tease some things out, or if you're having some symptoms or some stomach upset, and you're like, oh, maybe this is diet related, maybe that would have some answers for you as you reintroduce some of those items. I think dietitians, we do elimination diets sometimes. We recommend that if we're really trying to figure something out, if it's bothering your stomach or your GI system. So the concept of that isn't very foreign. But participants having better control of their sugar cravings, which we touched on, and learning how different foods affect their energy levels. It's more strict than paleo in some ways, so I think some people might appeal to doing more of that sustainable longer term thing. And then it can be more difficult to go out to eat during that elimination period, right? And you know, if you really have to, if you're in a quick fix, it might be hard to find something for yourself. Try to tie that into the dining out trend thing. Next is D.A.S.H diet. I think this has been around for a while. I think people talk about it a lot. So obviously, it's a dietary approach to stop hypertension. I wouldn't say this is so much as a trend right now, as much of kind of a more accepted recommendation of how we all eat, right? So sodium is restricted. You're rich in fruits and veggies, low-fat dairy products, includes grains and lean meats, and it's limiting your red meat, sweets, and sugar-containing beverages. So a lot of research has shown that it's effective in reducing blood pressure levels and preventing heart disease. It's not limiting in those whole grains and fruits, like some of those other trendy diets. It's relatively easy to follow. But many products are naturally high in sodium. There might be a lot of label reading involved. And, you know, some people I think that have been through different disease states kind of get used to that kind of quickly. More challenging to go out to eat as, you know, again, those salt levels are pretty high, right? And the Mediterranean diet. So finally, we'll leave with this for as far as diet trends. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a trend. However, it's very, very common in Europe, as we kind of know, as it's so named. But it's focusing, again, fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean meats, really a big emphasis on fish. Oils and red wine. Hey, red wine's included. Who doesn't love that? So it's moderate in dairy consumption, and it's limiting those red meats again to a couple times a month. So some research suggests that this is beneficial for multiple medical conditions. It's relatively easy to follow, similar to that D.A.S.H. Rich in vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and overall studies have shown a decreased risk of mortality. Challenge in meeting protein needs dependent on food preferences. I think with that emphasis on fish, and again, where we live personally, like, I don't know, I'm not a huge seafood person, but again, I'll go for like a cod or some salmon or something. But I think trying to have that varied, good sources of omega-3s can be a challenge, and it can be expensive because we don't live on the coast or in a place where fish is more readily kind of available, where it's fresh. So I don't know, that was kind of the only con I could think of personally, because it is just so generally fitting of most foods. Obviously that processed stuff is more cut out. Those convenience things that are higher in sodium, it's gonna have more of a fresh cook from scratch kind of approach for that kind of eating. So this slide kind of emphasizes trends in dining. If I didn't hit on something you've seen, please share, because I would love to know. I eat out sometimes, but I don't go out a whole lot to like more fast food places. But posting nutritional information on menus, that's been around for a while. I think some menus still, I haven't really seen necessarily consistently everywhere. I think it's expanding slowly, but I think that's a nice benefit, because if I go to Panera, say, I might choose not the mac and cheese and get a, you know, salad. Not that I wouldn't anyway, even though the mac and cheese is really good. But you see that 520 or whatever it is for a small bowl, and you're just like, whoa, maybe not. So I definitely think that does sway people's choices. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think it can be a beneficial guideline for people. An increase in posting allergen or diet-friendly symbols. I think that's really nice, especially for people with those intolerances. It's getting easier for other people to eat out in general. I know one of my professors had celiac in college, and she would just be so afraid to eat out anywhere because she was afraid of that cross-contamination. So I think it's just really nice that we're getting a little more aware and sensitive to those different conditions as well. Hopefully we'll see continued improvements with that. Healthier choice menus. Some places might have a specific menu where it's like these are under 600 calories or 500 or what have you. So that might be a nice option for folks trying to watch their waistline but still wanting to have that good social time. And then your fast casual dining settings. So this is kind of a booming trend in and of itself. I think we're still trying to do that fast pace, but kind of that nicer setting instead of just a fast food drive-through. So we kind of see more of those fast casual settings. And predictions for more plant-based protein offerings and meals. I think I had mentioned like Chipotle protein bowls or whatever, but like Subway has these like whole grain kind of bowls now too that looked kind of interesting. And meal delivery kits, that's huge. I think a lot of people, and I think it's good too for some food access. I mean, grocery stores are delivering more, so that's nice for people, but just kind of giving you the tools to cook a little, you know, more, but it's kind of pre-prepared. So it can be a nice option if that's something that's available to you or affordable for you. Ooh, here's our Culvers activity. I'm excited about this one. So this is a little activity. Oh, did anyone see anything I didn't put on this lovely trends in dining slide? Has anyone seen anything else or additionally at restaurants or fast food places that they, you know, feel I missed? If not, that's fine. Just thought I would ask. All right, finding my plate at Culver's. So what entree would you choose between a classic butter burger, a cod sandwich, or a grilled chicken sandwich? If anyone wants to speak up, don't be shy. A butter burger. Oh, Merle, I wish. No. So our grilled, so that is what you would choose. Yeah. What do you think the recommended choice would be for a lower calorie, lower fat option? Grilled chicken. Good job, guys. All right. Wonderful. How about sides, though? This one is interesting to me, by the way. Just it's a little bit of a tease. Ooh, all right. We'll make this side participate. Okay. All right. Who's choosing the side over here? We got French fries, mashed potatoes and gravy, and green beans. So interestingly enough, I did not put the Culver's nutritional information because I'm not really great at screenshotting and, you know, pasting things together. I should work on that as a skill. But your green beans are really high in sodium at Culver's. I think they were like 700 or 800 milligrams in the green beans, and the mashed potatoes and gravy were surprisingly lower in sodium than the green beans. I was kind of shocked. And even the French fries were lower than the green beans. So honestly, you can go ahead and have that mashed potato and gravy option. Cook your green beans at home. Add some herbs and lemon juice, butter, what have I don't know, olive oil, whatever you choose to kind of flavor that up a little. But yes, I was shocked by that. And then finally, drink choice. So milk, soda, or unsweetened tea. This is kind of a, you know, obvious one. Do you have a diet soda? Sure. And I love soda sometimes too. I know, I should have, I don't know. I was like, that could be dessert, but someone might have it as a drink. I don't know. That's yours. So actually, you could do milk or unsweetened tea. Obviously, those are both healthful options. Soda unsweetened if you're doing that. And it's kind of, you know, I think in general, there's not any strong evidence for non-nutritive sweeteners. I think we're trying to research that more, but in general, obviously, you know, water or an unsweetened tea or a milk would still be better than like most sodas, though a diet soda, arguably a healthier option, absolutely. So, well, and you have to, right. Sure, absolutely, yep, and that's a good point too. The fruit, good question. That's a good question. Does Culver's have fruit cups? I mean, they've got the fruits they mix into their concrete mixers that are oh so delicious, right? But I have fruit cups? I don't know. There you go, right? Right, yes, they're colorful. You can get the salad, yep, and those are pretty good options. I didn't put that as a side because I knew that would be kind of the obvious one. I like that the green beans was a little bit of a tease, but yes, that's a great side to have at Culver's for sure. So yes, Sydney. Ooh, good question. Again, I definitely probably high in salt. Yes, I'm sure if you compared the options, they might have, I mean, who knows? I didn't actually look at the soup specifically when I looked at the specs on here, but generally they're high in sodium. I know Culver's, I've seen like, I think it's like Gordon's Food Service or something pull in and out of there. I'm not sure if it's the same in all areas. They've opened so many locations, of course, but some places make their own soup. Some people just do the frozen. There are some low sodium products that are out with different food purveyors as well. So maybe, I don't know, I would have to look at the specs specifically and see what the sodium levels were. Usually high. Yes, you're correct with those broths or bouillon or whatever they're using for a base. You're correct. But yeah. All right.
Did you pick Culvers because they're especially good or especially bad or just average?
I picked them because they're so common around here. And I do like them. I'm not gonna lie. I do a snack pack though. I try to make the portion a little smaller so that if I'm indulging a bit, it's a little less. However, what was I gonna say? Oh, I have good friends in Ohio, and they're so jealous. They're like, oh, I miss those Wisconsin cheese curds, and I miss those Culvers every exit. And I'm like, oh, well, I miss some other things that I don't have here, right? So it's just kind of funny though. They all know about Culvers, and it's spreading very rapidly too. So maybe a lot of you do this at home already. Maybe you kind of take recipes and modify it, or some people might use like blogs or different cookbooks and try to pick out recipes that they think are more appropriate for them. I always find it fun though. I had one project a while back where we had to take recipes that people brought us and kind of modify their recipe. So we made their version and our version, and they actually liked our version of, like, for example, enchiladas better, and we added some veggies in and lightened up the sauce. So it's funny how sometimes healthy cooking can just add that more flavor and actually be more enjoyable. Yes. The soups? All very high. Oh, wow. Yeah, don't eat soup at Culver's. Maybe make some at home. Sure. That's crazy. So you're better off with a small French fry. See? I guess we're getting potatoes. Another drink, sure. Okay, so substituting in recipes. I think some of these are kind of straightforward. If you don't do a lot of home cooking though, maybe you'll learn something new today. But cooking in oil instead of butter is absolutely something that just kind of increases the healthy fats, decreases those saturated fats. Not gonna lie though, I sometimes mix a little both because that butter flavor, you know, kind of do a little less butter and a little oil too. You know, it's some people have taste preferences, so just trying to do moderation and incorporate some of those things appropriately. Using low-fat dairy products, so we touched on that already. Obviously, your keto is going to be drinking heavy cream or, I don't know, whole milk or what have you, those high-fat options, but those are higher in calories. Reducing sodium by using herbal seasonings. I think people are pretty well versed in that. Citrus or hot sauce as well to add some flavor. Sometimes sharp cheese too can just add a little flavor without adding, I mean, cheese is higher calorie and a little high sodium, but you know, you can just kind of play around, especially on like salads or whatnot, if you can use less of it, if it's stronger tasting, instead of just putting it all on there. I've seen salads that are more cheese than lettuce, so I don't know about you, but those sharper cheeses can be helpful. Adding veggies into your dishes or as a side, and then balancing your plate. Kind of really measuring stuff out is really always recommended to kind of do appropriate portions. Using stronger, oh, I already said that. Wow, ahead of myself. Cutting sugar and baking by using sugar substitutes or just watching portion sizes of those. And then measuring your portion size. Wow, sorry, that's repeated. My apologies. All right, so I wanted to kind of modify a recipe with everyone. I didn't like do another slide where it says kind of the answers. So if you were looking ahead, then sorry, there's not anything there. But if anyone can have any recommendations, want to study it a little bit, if you have a suggestion and want to share, that's awesome. Otherwise, I can just go through it too. Ah. You've been volunteered by Cindy. Ah. There you go.
So one of the things I do have a soup trick that you could do in there too. So my family loves carrots. I know carrots have some sugar in them. but in order to thicken things, I put like a ton of big chunks of carrots, and then when they're really soft, I take them out and take the immersion blender and do it, and that thickens the soup. It also makes a beautiful color, and
Nice.
instead of adding other things to thicken.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
I dropped the garlic salt in slice for garlic.
Yes, or garlic powder. Yep, either way, that would be great. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You are 100% correct. So like she said, I love the carrot idea. And were you referencing the heavy cream specifically when you were looking at that? Okay, I was just going to say that's awesome. I love that idea. The chicken broth itself, it doesn't specify low sodium. I think a lot of products are coming out now too. I know the Swanson brand, for instance, has just a no salt added, and that's like the lowest sodium version of their broth that I've seen, which is really nice and really handy for people. Mayonnaise, I don't know. We could maybe, sometimes, I mean, mayo's like, okay, it's not a whole lot. You might be able to maybe, I don't know, use a kind of spruce up a Greek yogurt or something. I don't know, something with a little more protein and a little more other benefits to it other than just straight mayo. Not that mayo's like the absolute worst thing in the world. Yes, Elise. Oh, duh. Thank you. Thank you, darling. Good one. And two, the cheese just goes on top. I didn't put the instructions here, but you could either use a little less or use a stronger flavored one and kind of cut some of the calories and fat out of that a little bit too. So, but yeah, good job. I love the carrots. I'm obsessed with that. I'm sorry. Because it does. It adds another color. It adds another veggie. Oh, that's brilliant. All right. So I put some helpful resources on the end here, and some of you might use these already. So a lot of phone and tablet apps, you might have some of these on your phone already, but your MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Fujicate, so your MyFitnessPal and Lose It, if you're really trying to watch that weight. I know too, we didn't focus a lot on transplant today, but a lot of times immunosuppressive medications can kind of add and contribute to some weight gain. So unfortunately, that's something, I mean, we can all gain weight at any time, really, but just watching and counting those calories can maybe help put some balance in to our meal planning routine. And then Fujicate's a nice one. I like that a lot, actually. You scan barcodes, and it kind of just rates different foods, which is a nice thing. Obviously, you guys have some great suggestions, too, and some good knowledge already, but just trying to see how those are rated and see if there is a better choice on the shelf nearby, or, making a more educated decision is always helpful. And then, of course, I listed some organization websites, and I already went through those before. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, I find a lot of good information on there, obviously. American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, and now National Kidney Foundation. We kind of touched on some of those disease states today. There's obviously more organizations out there that might be more prevalent to other disease conditions that would probably be a good source of knowledge as well. And then, of course, I had to put a little plug in again, because I do think we're underutilized. If you ever have questions, you can, email me. I don't know. It'd be fun. So, does anyone have additional questions? You were good at asking questions throughout, but if you have anything or anything specific or anything, I don't know, can go ahead and go through those. Am I okay on time? Oh, yeah, sweet. Yes.
Well, I'm a big fan of Mexican food.
There are a lot of options.
Somebody said something once when they were ordering Mexican food, like, can I get cabbage instead of lettuce?
Oh, sure.
And then I did a little search, not like I got smart about it or anything, but to find out about why somebody would want to do that. I mean, it tastes better, but apparently lettuce has zero nutritional value.
Yeah,
Is that really true?
Typically iceberg lettuce. So, I mean, there's some fiber component to it. I hear some people say a lot if they're on Coumadin or something, for instance, they're like, oh, well, I avoid these green vegetables, but I have iceberg lettuce. So I was like, did you know iceberg lettuce has the same amount of vitamin K as kale? Because so it was just, you hear interesting things. But yeah, it's really mostly fiber. There's not a whole lot of other good vitamins. I think that's why there is a push for more of these like superfood, or like your kale, your spinach, arugula. I think we're seeing that more in salads too, and more of these farm to table settings. I think in more of those fast casual dining settings, they're doing more of an emphasis on more of those nutritive green sources. But yeah, unfortunately, it's mostly kind of water, fiber, little roughage for you. So, sure.
25 grams, because you can, you know what you eat, baby.
Oh yeah.
And that.
Oh, for your fiber.
So if you want to.
Sure. Okay. Is this from a website, or is it? You just Googled it. Okay. She found some fiber references for your question from earlier. So it says you need to eat 8 medium-sized bananas to get 25 grams of daily fiber. Now, would I eat 8 bananas? Oh, gotcha. Oh, I see. Yep, sorry, didn't slide over one more. So it has like 1 cup of ready-to-eat cereal, about 8 grams, half cup of applesauce, about 2, cup of frozen broccoli is about 4, and then like some canned navy beans and rice together is about 9, and then like a slice of whole grain bread, which is another 2, and that's about 25. So like if you're doing those legumes, grains, veggies and fruits and things, it can kind of add up. What's that? Mm-hmm. That you're not wrong. That's true. And then it has another, it takes about 80 baby carrots to provide that recommended fiber as well. So, all right. Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, I think like if you had some oatmeal and put some berries on it for breakfast, and then some yogurt might have a little in there, or, you know, an English, you know, I mean, some bread on your sandwich, it all kind of adds up. Nuts, or seeds even too. Those are kind of more common snacks. You got it. It does. Yep. They have some of those noodles now too that are more made of vegetables, or like more quinoa, more of those ancient grains, if you will, are added in, and those are more whole fiber. Also, oh shoot, I'm blanking.
Chia seeds.
Yep. And flax. A lot of people add flax. Yep. You can mix that in.
Have sometimes protein shakes with fruits in it, and sometimes put kale in it, and then put flaxseed or chia seeds or sunflower seeds or something like that, and blend it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So yeah, adding those flax or chia into like fruit shakes and another vegetable, yeah, that's great. That's a good source. Right, there you go. They're all blended in. Funny. Yeah, okay. All right. Any other thoughts or questions, anyone? All right, I think, yeah, we're right at 7.
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I hope you learned something today. I had really a lot of fun making this, and kind of refreshing on some of those trendy diets too, because we don't always, I feel like some people ask about them in the clinical setting, and sometimes we touch on them, or we don't, you know, we're so focused on other things that it's hard to really, I don't want to say hard to meal plan for that, but it's not always recommended. But if people really do want it, you know, you kind of got to meet your patients where they're at, work with them, and kind of see, well, if we try this, how is it going to affect you? And if that's something you really want to commit to, we do try to, you know, support any sort of interest that patients have, unless it's really unsafe or just contraindicated. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. So thank you.
Well, we'll let maybe you can stay around a few minutes more. But for those of you that joined us online, we want to thank you. Our next program will be the second Tuesday, which I believe is April 9th. And we'll have a special presentation because it's Donate Life Month. So it will relate to something that you don't really know about in terms of organ, tissue, and eye donation. So thank you for those of you who have joined us online, and thanks to Merle and John. There'll be a recording that accompanies the PowerPoint on our website. So if you want to refresh on any of these particular points, but thank you very much for joining us tonight.